Hi, welcome back to another Heather Mac Reacts. Today we're going through some of your submissions. That's right, you guys came through with a ton of stories. I have enough for this week. I think I have enough for next week too, but keep them coming. Petty revenge, malicious compliance, am I the a-hole? Just need some advice. I want to hear it. Send it to contact heathermac@gmail.com, and I would love to feature you in a video. All submissions are anonymous unless you specifically say, hey Heather, please give me a shout out. That is the only way that I will mention your name. Anywho, send me more stories. If you like videos like this, make sure you subscribe because I post 5 times a week, every single week. And if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's get into this first viewer submission story. This says, here's my petty revenge story, and I'm ready. I got married in my 20s to a child in his 30s, and he became incredibly abusive. We ended up having a child together, and after my son was born, my motherly instincts kicked in like crazy. I barely slept. I did all the childcare, worked 3 days a week, and kept the house spotless as well as pumping. I hit a breaking point. And if none of y'all have ever pumped, just know it is incredibly frustrating to just be stuck to a machine for like a minimum of 25 to 30 minutes, like 4, 5, 6 times a day. It's draining. I did it for like 3 months and it was miserable. I cannot imagine doing it for longer. I hit a breaking point and decided to stop pumping. I don't blame you. I just transitioned my son to formula around 8 months. We never had more than a small can of formula and it drove me nuts. I really needed a couple of large cans to feel comfortable as I struggled with food scarcity growing up and also have PPA. My ex liked to buy a small can every other day and he controlled our money/spending, which is financial abuse. Less than a week later, my ex-husband kissed me goodbye and left for a party. He never came home. I called him the next day around 9 a.m. inquiring where he was and why he didn't come home. I asked about formula. He smugly replied, I'm dating. I'm having a good time. Figure it out. Oh, you son of a bitch. I didn't have money. I didn't have a car. Well, that was that. We have a visitor for a few minutes. Never mind the hand. He likes to smack me in the face often. Let's get back to the story. I decided right then and there all the love I had I would pour into my son, and I was leaving my husband. Here is the petty revenge. Girl, I'm assuming girl, I am so ready for you to get back at this man, this boy, this child. I don't even want to insult children by calling this man a child. That's insulting to them. Here is the petty revenge. All our joint money went into an account under his name only, but the Amazon account was linked to his debit card. I ordered 300, that's all that was in the account, of formula and diapers to be delivered ASAP to our home. He freaked out because he suddenly didn't have cash to fund his little weekend getaway. I took every item I could call my own, all the baby items and the freaking dog, and ghosted to my brothers until we began divorce proceedings. My ex was totally screwed and has to call his mom to lend him money again. It was one thing when he was mistreating me. It's another when you F with my kid. I'm now happily married after a lot of therapy. The best revenge is a life well lived after all. My son is thriving. Girl, I would lie, cheat, and steal to get my baby formula. So what you did was not only smart, clever, intelligent. Tell him, baby J. And I want to call you scrappy. That was nice. That was a beautiful petty revenge. I'm so glad you were able to protect yourself and protect your son, get out of that situation safely, and now you're in a much better one. Thank you so much for this submission. I would like to hear what you all think about that petty revenge in the comments, and let's get on to the next story. This says, am I the a-hole for telling my sister not to switch iPhones? sounds like it's coming from a place of sound advice, but let's see what the story says. Hi, I am a big sister to 3 siblings. Backstory, she is the one who takes without asking, and now she does ask. My little sister wanted to switch to iPhone 7 with me, but I said no and kept at it. I had the plus version and she had the regular version. Then she called me rude. She was mad at me. Then she asked me again about a week or so later, and she said I would give you $25 for it. I said no because I needed the bigger screen. No, you are not the a-hole. You do not have to switch anything with anybody. Your sister, your sibling, your family, your friends, your loved ones, your partner, even your children are not entitled to your things. What? Listen, I need the bigger screen. I don't care what your excuse is. You don't need an excuse. This is my phone. That is your phone. No, I don't want to exchange. I don't want to switch. And no is a complete sentence. So sorry for your loss, but maybe you can upgrade in a couple months and get an even better phone than me. And that's just how the cookie crumbles. Right now, I have a better phone than my husband. I'm sure in a couple months, he'll upgrade, or a year, he'll upgrade his phone, and now he'll have a better phone than me. And that's just the way it is. As long as it works, it's good enough. And I doubt, definitely the little ones, I doubt you're paying the bills. So zip it up and throw away the key. I would like to know what you all think about that one in the comments. Thank you so much for your submission, and let's get on to the next story. Okay, this one has trigger warnings for mentions of abuse, neglect, and unaliving thoughts. If any of that is triggering for you, feel free to skip ahead. We have a couple stories after this as well as a personal Heather Mack story entitled, Am I the a-hole for banging on the door and waking up strangers at 4 o'clock in the morning? Stay tuned. This says, am I the a-hole for not forgiving my mom and going no contact? For context, I, 23 female, am the second oldest out of 8 siblings. So I grew up as a second mother for most of my younger siblings. My dad worked 2, sometimes 3 jobs as we were growing up, so he wasn't home much, and my mom had a lot of mental health issues, and due to her depression, she became incredibly neglectful and abusive at times. But since that was all my siblings and I knew, I spent most of my life thinking it was normal for my older brother and I to do all the chores and parenting around the house. My mom My mom often told us it was our job as oldest children, sorry. So I never really complained and just did everything I could to care for my siblings, which ranged from infants to teenagers. I was changing diapers from the age of 8, and other than breastfeeding, I was the one who did everything else for any of my siblings as babies and until they were more self-sufficient to help me with the other siblings. This is a rampant case of parentification. And if you didn't realize by now, that's not normal. That's not the way things are supposed to be. The mom who parents, who builds these children inside of her, who asked for these children, who facilitated the birth and the life of these children, they're her responsibility. And the husband and the father, yes, of course, but like not yours. We were barely allowed to eat or bathe. We could have a PB&J sandwich for lunch and otherwise had to wait for dinner to eat again if my mom chose to cook. Otherwise, we would have fend for yourself nights where my older brother or I would try to find ingredients for simple meals we could cook for us and the kids. We were only allowed 1 bath or shower a week during the school year, and when it was summer break, we would go weeks without bathing because my mom didn't see the need for us to be clean if no one would see us. Oh, my mama heart. Since I was a girl and my dad would spend more time with me having tea parties and typical father-daughter things, my mom was jealous and targeted me extra as a kid for verbal abuse about my appearance. I've always been really dainty figured like a ballerina, and my mom is overweight, or she would brush my hair. My hair was long and naturally wavy, reaching past my butt so harshly I would be bawling my eyes out, and she would literally rip out chunks of my hair and smack my head with the brush if I was crying too loudly. Those are just some examples of the shit my siblings and I experienced. I'm literally wanting to cry. I'm so sorry that in the time when you needed someone to care for you and comfort you and help you grow, you had someone who was beating you down and verbally putting you down and doing everything they can to make your life a living hell. I just want you to know that there are parents out there who really truly love their children. I tell my baby too, but like he don't know what the hell I'm saying, so I'm not as like strict about telling him every day. But like my almost 5-year-old, I tell him every day, you are so special, you are so smart, you are so funny, you are so cute, you are so handsome. Thank you so much. You did such a good job. I mean, it's funny the amount of positive reinforcement this kid gets because he turns around and gives it back to us. Like, I'll cook a dinner and he'll go, "Good job, Mom. This dinner is delicious." So yeah, there are good parents out there, and I'm sure if you choose to have children one day, or if you already do, that you're going to do a much better job than them. But man, I'm so sorry. Let's finish the story. Hopefully I can get through it without crying. And since my dad was busy working to keep bills paid, he wasn't aware of the maltreatment until I was a teenager and started telling him about it. My mom would make it seem like my siblings and I were awful children that never listened to her, even though she would spend all her time smoking on the porch or laying in bed watching TV when she wasn't verbally or physically abusing us. We spent most of our time playing outside or hiding in our room so we could avoid her line of fire. It wasn't until I went to college and lived on campus away from my family that I began to realize I had suffered a lot of neglect, physical and verbal abuse, and that I had hardly any memory of most of my childhood. I was a psychology major, so that also helped me reflect on my childhood and dig more into the trauma I had without realizing it. And I had a great support system in my friends there. Now on to the situation with my mom. My mom has always used me as her counselor ever since I was about 12 and always involved me in her marital issues with my dad. So I was used to having to give her advice and listen to her vent on a daily basis. There were even times I would worry for her mental health to the point that I would check on her anytime she was in the bath for a while or call her while she was out driving somewhere because she would tell me constantly all the awful ways she had thought about taking her life in vivid detail. I basically was her babysitter. Imagine the fucking load this poor girl felt of her mother's whole goddamn life on her shoulders. I have to make sure my mom doesn't do anything in the bathroom. I have to make sure she doesn't run her car off the road. I have to make sure she's feeling good. It is no one's job but your mom's to make sure of all those things. Holy shit. A couple years ago when I was 21, my mom and I had our first major fight. Honey, you might be up for sainthood if that's the first time you fought this bitch. She called me one evening and bragged about how she was going to pick a fight with my dad. They fought a lot at this point and were close to the end of their marriage. All I said was not to involve the kids in her fight and not to fight in front of them. And then she flipped out on me and said I was trying to teach her how to parent. Well, someone has to fucking teach you because you clearly know nothing. Everything went downhill from there, and I began to fight with her often while trying to protect my siblings. My youngest sibling was only 5 at the time, and she began to try and turn my siblings against me, and it just became a whole mess. She called me a selfish bitch and all kinds of other verbal abuse to the point that I had a few different mental breakdowns and even became in the mood to unalive myself at some points. To protect my mental health, my friends and older brother and sister-in-law encouraged me to go no contact with my mom, and although it was really scary, I did. I stopped responding to her calls or texts, and I uninvited her to my college graduation. Going no contact worked well when I lived 2 hours away for college, but after I graduated and moved back with my dad and grandpa, my parents divorced shortly after I graduated. I only lived a few minutes away from my mom now, and it suddenly became harder to be no contact. She would try to get my siblings to guilt me into speaking to her again. She would buy some of my favorite snacks to send with my dad for me when he'd go to pick up my siblings. And I suddenly had other families saying the typical, "She's your mom. You'll regret not talking to her if she dies suddenly," etc. Will I though? I think I've done enough talking to this bitch. And it started making me feel like I'm being unnecessarily stubborn. You're fucking not. I could tell you that right now. No, you're fucking not. But then she crossed the line for the last time against me by showing up at my job and confronting me. I work at a hotel as a front desk receptionist, and on my evening shifts, I am the only staff member, so she showed up and caught me off guard and alone. She was fake as fuck, standing there and holding her arms out for a hug like it was some tearful reunion, but I just stared at her in disbelief and shook my head saying, "No thanks." And then her mask fell off. She began berating me for not talking to her and asking me why I hate her so much and what she ever did to make me hate her. She's a great mom, etc., etc. Really? Prove it. Show me one instance where you're a great mom. I can give you 10 instances off the top of my head right this very second about the ways that I was a great mom to both of my children, because I work very hard to be a great mom for my kids. I'm not always perfect and I'm not always great. There's sometimes that I'm, not the greatest mom. Sometimes I yell. Sometimes I scream. Sometimes I curse. I don't like curse at them. I don't say, "You little asshole." I'd be like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Stuff like that. Not great. Not proud of it. Not perfect, but I am a great mom. I still have massive trauma from her, so I freeze up and shake like a leaf when she raises her voice at me. It's a trauma response I've been trying to work on, but with her, it just brought me back to being a helpless child, and I could only sit there and be berated. After I sat there without responding, she got even angrier and told me, "So this is how it's going to be? You're not even going to give me a chance?" I almost started crying at this point because I was starting to feel guilty and like I was treating her unfairly. Luckily, a guest walked in and my mom hugged and left. I barely held it together to check in a few guests before I ran to the bathroom, crying and calling my sister-in-law to help calm me down. I was shaking the whole rest of my shift, and when I got home, I broke down crying to my dad again about what happened. He ended up confronting her, and she said she was only visiting her daughter and that I was overreacting. I feel like there's a word for this type of woman. Is it narcissist, sociopath? Like, what is it that she constantly lies, constantly manipulates, constantly makes herself the victim? Like, holy shit, I am so sorry that you had this type of person in your family at all, let alone your mother. Like, your mother is supposed to be one of, if not the most important and influential person in your life, and yours was a fucking bitch. After that, I have been struggling even more with being no contact because my teenage younger brothers have begun guilt tripping me and saying she's better and I'm just being petty, even though the way she blew up at me at my job showed she was the same as always. I am currently saving up money to move a few hours away, and I'm working on getting my driver's license. Never got it because mom used me as free babysitting and liked having me stranded at home with no license. And hopefully once I move, I will feel better about being no contact because I won't have my siblings breathing down my neck to fix things with my mom. I'm tired of being labeled the bad guy by my mom and siblings because I chose to protect myself, but they continue to try and force me to make amends. Am I the a-hole? Absolutely 100,053% no, you are not the a-hole. I think you already know from my running commentary through your story how I feel about you and your mom, but you are so incredibly strong, and I really truly urge you to get into therapy if you're not already in therapy, because honestly, the fact that your mom can walk in and start screaming at you, and at what, 21 you said? 23, you should not still be so held within her grip like that. You should be able to just pick up the phone and call 911 and be like, she needs to be trespassed from this place. She needs to be removed. That is the level of no fucks that I want you to be at one day. I understand it takes time. I understand that there was so much abuse. There are so many layers to go through, but please get into therapy because you need to be at that no fucks given point, and then you will truly be no contact with her and mean it. I am so sorry for everything you've gone through. Thank you so much for sending this story to me. No, you're not the a-hole, but I would like all of you to let her know that she is also not the a-hole in the comments. And let's get on to the next story. This says, would I be the a-hole for asking my mom to give my sister more chores? No, and I don't like unfairness between siblings, but let's just get right into it. To preface, my sister, older teenager age, reaching adulthood, has a bunch of mental health issues. Don't we all? I'm empathetic and understanding towards this. However, lately and in the past, it's felt as if I've been doing a lot around the house. My chores, just for more background, consist of walking 2 dogs, my mom's dog because she works, and my own, and 2 cats, our kittens, one of which is again my mom's. I don't mind watching my mom's dog or cat, but my sister's kitten should be her responsibility. And I wash the dishes, clean my own room and bathroom, pay for my phone, have a part-time job, and live in a town where I don't make enough, so at the moment I don't. The usual chores, right? So the issue starts where my parents walk eggshells around my sister. She's in therapy, has meds, and been stable for a bit. However, when I ask for help, she disappears. When my parents ask her to clean her room, she doesn't. Clean her bathroom? Nope. Ask to clean the kitchen or living room? Maybe the dining room table? No, she just leaves. Her responsibilities are really only babysitting and cooking dinner. So I end up doing pretty much everything around the house while my parents work. And I'm in online college, so I have homework to do too, which is an excuse my sister uses. If I use it, I get yelled at. You see, my parents would have taken my shit away if I didn't clean my room or bathroom the first time they asked, let alone if they had to ask multiple times. So if I brought up the conversation to my mom, would I be an a-hole if I asked her to give my sister more chores? No, you wouldn't be an a-hole because it does seem like things are pretty unequal in the house. However, I would recommend you not bringing it up in the heat of the moment. Do not bring it up during a fight. You need to all have calm, cool, level heads and just be like, listen, here are the facts. I do X, Y, Z, and she only does A. So can we even this up a little bit because I'm feeling very much like things are not even at the time. But I do not think you're an a-hole for bringing up the conversation one little tiny itsy bitsy bit. I would like to know what you all think about that one in the comments, and let's get on to my story. Okay, here's my am I the a-hole story. Am I the a-hole for banging on a stranger's door at like 4 o'clock in the morning and waking them up from a dead sleep? Let me set the scene. I was an Uber driver. That meant if you really wanted to make the big bucks and you weren't a morning person like I'm not, you worked nighttime. Around here, bars close at 2. I would usually work until like 2:30 or 3. Then sometimes I'd run to the grocery store, pick up something to eat for the night, and then head home. Well, this night I was driving down this road. It was not a very busy road, but it's a road that runs parallel to a very busy road. So there's definitely traffic on this road. And I see this light bobbing in the distance. And I'm like, is that like a bicyclist, right? But it was kind of bobbing too much to be a bicycle. And I get closer and I find that it's a little boy, aged like 5, in a bathrobe, rain boots, and he has a little lantern. That's the light that I saw bobbing. This little boy running along the side of the fucking road at like 4 o'clock in the morning. So I stop my car and I'm like, hey, what you doing? And he goes, I'm on an adventure. I'm like, oh God. Little did I know that I would be blessed with 2 boys, one of which would entirely do this 100%, except We've talked a lot about bad guys being out there, so maybe he wouldn't, but holy shit. So I sat there talking to this kid for a few minutes, trying to figure out where he lived. And I was like, you really need to go home. And he's like, okay. And I'm like, do you want me to drive you there? And he was like, no. Like, he was scared. I'm a stranger. Totally understandable. So I'm following this kid as he's running home, but he's running at like half a mile an hour, and it is 4:30 in the morning, and I have ice cream in my back seat. Like, I just want to get home, eat some dinner, probably eat some ice cream, and go to bed. So finally I'm like, listen kid, I know you're not supposed to get in strangers' cars, but I promise I just want to get you home. If you just jump in my back seat and tell me where to go, I will drive you home. And finally he agreed. Maybe he shouldn't. Obviously we all know I'm not a fucking predator, but anyway, he gets in my car, I drive him home. And I knock on the door, and I knock on the door, and I knock on the door, and I knock on the door. And finally, a little kid comes to the door. He's probably like 9. And I'm like, hi, where are your parents? And he's like, they're sleeping. And I'm like, well, I just found your brother walking down, it was called, whatever the street was called, we'll call it Main Street. It wasn't Main Street. I just caught your brother running down Main Street alone. And it's, 4:30 in the morning now. And he's like, oh, okay, let me wake up my dad. And so the little kid is like, no, don't wake up my dad. Don't wake up my dad. And I'm like, dude, like, you need to be held responsible for this. This was really dangerous. And so the dad comes to the door and he's like, hello. And I'm like, hi, I'm an Uber driver, and I was just coming home from working a night shift and saw your kid running down fucking Main Street alone. And he said he was going on an adventure. And the dad was like, I don't know if it's just because he was literally woken up out of a deep sleep, but he like was not appreciative. He was not thankful that like an honest stranger brought his fucking small child home to him. Like, I don't even think he said thank you. So am I the a-hole? Should I have brought him home? Or my mother-in-law brought up a suggestion that I didn't even think of at the time, but she's like, you really should have just called the police and let them handle it, because what if he was running from like an abusive situation. It really didn't seem like that. He really was super happy to go on an adventure. So that's why it didn't even cross my mind. But yeah, am I the a-hole for waking them up, or should I have just let the kid slide back into his house the way he got out? I would like to know your take on that. I would also like more of your viewer submissions. Again, it's contactheathermac@gmail.com. Send them in. I'll read them out. And if you like videos like this, we have a playlist that I am starting to grow right up here. And then we also have our Am I the A-hole playlist. I will link them both up here for you. Please don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.